Hello, everybody. Welcome. Good morning. Yay, happy wisdom soup. Hi. Oh, so good to see you guys. Hey, Sandy, good to see you. Pam. Yay, Amina. Hello, you guys. Becky, haven't seen you in a while. So good to see you. Good. And Rod is here and Diane. All right. Monica. Fantastic. Hey, Monica. So Carmela's joining in. Good morning, Linda. Hey, how are you? Good to see you. Welcome, Tamara. So good to see everybody. Hello. So welcome today. We're going to keep letting people in as we go. Today is our Wisdom Soup meetup. I'm so glad you guys could join us. I think today's talk is going to be a super, super cool talk. I am so thrilled to have Amber with us. And you guys know Wisdom Soup that every month we've been doing this now, as you guys know, for years. I need to actually count back and see how many years it was, but it was many, many years that we've been doing this. 6 years, 7, I'm not sure now. And then we've been getting together once a month, always talking about spiritual stuff, whatever floats the boat, right? Whatever it seems interesting at the time. And the whole idea is to continually expand ourselves, right? To open our minds, to expose ourselves to new ideas, to grow spiritually. And sometimes in this process, we find stuff that really resonates. And sometimes we find stuff and we're like, that's interesting. I'll wait on that one. I'll put a pin in that. But the idea is to be open to discover. And we call it wisdom soup because when you make a soup, you get to decide what to put in your own soup, that you get all the ingredients and you get to pick and choose how to make your own soup. So it's a flexible thing. And I know for myself, the things I have put in my soup have changed dramatically over the years as I have evolved in my own spiritual journey. So this is just a process of continually being open-minded, which I think that's a good way of kind of defining the spiritual journey, right? Is stepping outside of our comfort zones and encountering new ideas. So we talk about all the super woo, everything from dream interpretation to dragons to fairies to crystals to the physics of spirituality to just to all of it. We go to the every aspect we can think of, new healing modalities, whatever is interesting. So today, I think this is such a timely talk because at this process where we are in the ascension that and really I think of it as a shift that we're going through in humanity, we are seeing so much polarity in the world. And polarity is important, right? Polarity is how we create. It's like we are designed to have polarity as humans, like we have a positive pole and a negative pole. The planet has a positive pole and a negative pole. Like the process of creation is about separation and coming together again. And but in the process of trying to go through this ascension, we have seen the polarity in our world become increasingly extreme. And some of these issues that have been buried for a long time are coming to the surface around, the Me Too movement, the Black Lives Matter movement. We're seeing all these ways in which things have not been talked about are now coming to the surface. So the person we have with us is someone who is in our community, Amber, and she is, this has been part of the work of her life. And she is just in the process of releasing her new book, which is going to be talking about healing the 4 woundings. So this really is like the 4 woundings. These are spiritual woundings and this is her guide to ending discord and discrimination. And she comes with a beautiful perspective because not only has she done this work in the real world, she actually worked for the Obama administration and has been helping others to work with issues around diversity and discrimination. But she herself had a life-altering near-death experience. So she has been on a deeply spiritual journey and has dealt with significant health challenges that she has been working through healing herself through her own connections. So her own connection to spirit. So I think the perspective she has to share with us, I cannot wait to hear what she has to say. So she is now a spiritual coach, right? She has crafted tools grounded in neuroscience of unconscious bias to heal herself from beliefs that result in discord, discrimination, and oppression. She now uses these tools in her practice among businesses and agencies to foster positive workplace culture, right? Her perspective has been seen in her by thousands of agencies for leading change management initiatives across the country. And I think it's pretty cool that we are her first stop on her train in terms of releasing her book, or her first talk. And she's going to be doing a lot of podcasts out there sharing this book, but to come out the gate with one that is committed to the woo, that is a spiritual perspective on what she's sharing, to me sets the tone for what she's going to be sharing with the world. So I would love to welcome Amber to our group. So Amber, I'm going to go ahead and spotlight you for everybody. Just a moment here. There we are. So welcome, Amber.
Thank you. I just want to say I'm so honored to be here, and I'm really grateful that this is my first meeting to talk about my book. So I am going to walk through the book, but I would really love it if you all felt comfortable to ask questions. So this book is deeply personal, and that's why it's taken me 7 years to be ready to talk about it. So let me talk a little bit about my background, because I do think it shows the sense of humor that the infinite creator has. So I'm actually an expert in discrimination. I worked for the Bush administration and the Obama administration, like Anne said. I wrote several federal civil rights laws, and I then investigated agencies for discrimination. So I've been doing this for about 25 years, and this book is entirely vulnerable. It talks about me, but this story is really a love story about you. So at the beginning of the book, I talk about my near-death experience. And so what happened was, in 2016, I have a rare disease, as Anne mentioned. And what happened was my consciousness popped outside of my body. I had had a seizure, and I floated through the ceiling, and I went into a blackness, and I call it the black void. But I went into this darkness, and on the other side of the darkness, there was a pinprick of light. And that pinprick of light, it called me, and it sucked me into that light with the being of light that I call the infinite creator. And there were many teachings that were shared with me with the being of light. I had a life review, and it was unbelievably painful. It was beautiful, but it was also extremely painful. And I say that because what's actually happening here is that this is actually a holographic reality, and we, as beings of light, are actually on the other side. One dimension of ourself is on the other side, dreaming this. And so there were many things that were shared with me, and I learned how I had harmed people, and I felt the feeling of when I had harmed them in my near-death experience, in my life review. I felt the feeling of when I harmed them. And there were many things that were shared with me, but one is that we have to be our perfect puzzle piece in order for the puzzle to fit together. The other thing that I learned was that essentially we're a drop of water amongst the entire ocean. And what that meant is that we're a fractal of the consciousness of the infinite creator. That's essentially what we are. And so after that experience, and I describe it in the book, I came back, and I know a lot of people depict near-death experiences as beautiful, and they are. It was absolutely beautiful. but it was also extremely hard, because, and depressing, because once you are in the light and then you come back here, it's so depressing to be away from the light and to be out of the light. And so I turned it off. And I turned it off because I scared my family. I was really psychic. It's kind of like being on a psychedelic, because you can hear people's thought forms, you can see angelic beings. All of these things are real. It cracks your consciousness and it really opens you up. But at the same time, for everyone else that's around you, that's kind of scary. So I turned it off, and then the real fun started. So essentially what happened was, these angelic beings that are with me now, they had me basically on a quest. So after the near-death experience, I started studying consciousness, I studied quantum mechanics, and then that led me to study the neuroscience of unconscious bias. And what I discovered when I looked at the neuroscience, honestly, was shocking. Don't forget about my background. So there's these two biases, and one of them is called the mini-me bias, and the other one is called the self-serving bias. And the way the self-serving bias works is essentially this. If good things happen to me, I attribute them to myself. If bad things happen to me, I attribute them to things outside of me. Now, the problem with that is it presupposes you can't be wrong. This is actually the way that your brain is operating. It's the way that it's been created evolutionary. And so let's take an example. So let's say you apply for a job, you don't get the job. The way self-serving bias works is that you may believe that you did not get the job because of someone else's fault, when in actuality, you may not have gotten it because maybe you didn't prepare well, maybe there were 200 other candidates. There's a variety of reasons. In which case, ultimately, though, it may result in discrimination, but the reason why it's happening is to protect your self-esteem so that you can overcome the challenge of not having a job, so you can get a job so that you can eat. That's the evolutionary reason. The other reason, the other bias is called mini-me bias, and essentially the way that works is that you select candidates because they're like you. And if you think about back in the caveman days and our tribal brain, we tend to pick people that are like us because in the caveman days, people would steal our food and our women and our children if they didn't look like us. So it's a survival and protective mechanism. So, but the thing is, what happened to me was, as a result of this, the infinite creator had given me a technique to use, and I call it mindful listening. And what it does, and I include the technique in the book, and it's to help you regulate your thoughts and manage your thoughts in the moment where you're in a hostile situation, either at work or even with a family member, so that you can see your bias as it is unfolding. In other words, it helps you detach from your thoughts, and so that you can see another's bias as it's unfolding. So I was using this technique, and it literally hit me in the face. So the work in equity, as an equity consultant, I help other agencies develop innovative programs. And I was so angry because my clients would hire me to create a program for women or to create a program for people of color to get work or to get contracts. And then they wouldn't implement them. At some point, I began to think there's something wrong with me. And what happened was I was using this technique, and this guy was so angry. He was so mad over Black Lives Matter. And it literally slapped me in the face, because what I realized was what he was really saying is that if Black Lives Matter, I don't matter. And it's based on a false belief that he is not worthy. And what I realized was these using the word unconscious bias is not helpful, because what it really is woundings that are replaying in your mind. And the other thing that I discovered as I studied the neuroscience is there's a part of the back of your brain. It's called the reticular activation system. And it essentially holds you hostage to the beliefs that are in your unconscious mind that you don't know what the hell they are. And so it works like this. Remember when you used to drive your car, when you first learned to drive, when you first learned, you were all like, trying to be perfect, doing this, doing that. You're actually conscious on your way to get there. Well, the way reticular activation system works is when you're driving to work and your baby's screaming in the back and somehow you got to work, but you have no idea how you got there. What the reticular activation system does is it filters out everything else except for what's important. The baby is important. How I got there is not. And it does that to keep you alive. It filters out information except for those beliefs in your unconscious mind. And I say to all of my sisters in this room, and I don't know if we have any men, it doesn't look like it. I would say this to all of you, and I would especially say this to my white sisters. This is the most vulnerable thing I have ever done, because I acknowledge my oppressive thoughts. Unlike other NDE books, I take a completely different approach, which is what the infinite creator helped me realize through that life review. The darkness that lies within us is the key to our transformation. And what I realized, and I say in the book, is I believed that all white women were the most racist people that I ever met, when in actuality, it was the fact that I had been raped for many years when I was younger. I was poor. I had been discriminated against a lot. And those woundings replayed in my mind that I didn't even fucking knew existed. And they resulted in these 4 wounds that are the same wounds that are occurring in the man that's getting angry over Black Lives Matter. What he is believing is the thing that I believed, which is that he is not worthy, that he is not enough, that he has to win, and that he doesn't have enough. And those same woundings, as a result of my background and experiences, replayed in my mind, and it made me ugly. And that's why I say this book is actually a comedy, and it's a love story, because it's a comedy about me. And it's a comedy that the infinite creator would find someone like me with my background who would find the very oppression within her. And it's a love story about you because he asked me to tell it, to help you to see yourself. Because ultimately, I didn't know until after I finished it about one of the teachings of Christ, which is forgive them for they know not what they do, which is what essentially is happening is that we're unconscious most of the time. And what's happening is these woundings are replaying. And what's happening with discord, whether you're upset with someone where you're having a conversation about race or you're upset with your partner, we're essentially mirroring each other's pain. And the book is written using the mirror principle. And this is because of me, who I am. Each person, if they were to have a near-death experience, that near-death experience would be unique to them because we all create our own reality. And so my book is really about consciousness because I'm a geek. I'm a geek. And it uses techniques called, like growth mindset and mindful listening to teach you how to be in the present moment so that you can manage yourself and so that you can see others for what they're really saying. It also uses literally a set of techniques in the call to action to help neutralize your energy. It also includes a link to free affirmations. And I just want to say this. Whenever you are triggered, you're giving yourself a spiritual gift. That's one of the things that I learned. One of the affirmations that the Infinite Creator gave me was, it's called suffering. Suffering is grace. Grace is suffering. Suffering is the rising of a teacher. Love all experiences. And the path to freedom is really by turning in within to witness your darkness. And I guess the last thing I'll say is, what is the kingdom of heaven within you? It's really the consciousness, a fractal of the consciousness of the infinite creator within you. And so the way that it works is, if this was a picture and this is your consciousness, think of yourself as a flashlight. Your free will is what you point your flashlight on, what you're looking at. So everything that you've experienced here, you have actually planned before you came. But the way that you can change your experience is based on what you focus on and how you focus on it. And this is really a feeling reality. So what happens is thoughts and emotions, thoughts are electrical and emotions are magnetic. And when they come together, that's how you manifest. And this book is really about taking back your power and loving yourself in the way that the infinite creator loves you. Not everyone is going to choose to change their mind and to change their consciousness. And so it gives you the tools and techniques on how to handle yourself in those situations. So I know I've only talked for 30 minutes, Anne, but I wanted this to really be a conversation.
Yeah, fantastic. So, and if you have questions or thoughts that you want to share, please, if you want to drop them in the chat, and then if they are longer ones, we can unmute and have conversation. But there's definitely, you covered a lot there, Amber, and some of the questions that came to my mind as you were talking. One was, as you've been going through this journey, you said that you had initially you felt like you were very connected right afterwards, and your gifts were wide open, and then you closed them down. Do you feel like you're in a place now where those are starting to open again, or where are you on that journey?
Yeah, so honestly, the last year has been insane. So some of you were at the retreat that Anne had recently, and I shared a little bit about this, but spiritually my life has just exploded. I'm finally coming back into my gifts. Actually have beings of light that are healing me, and I'm almost healed entirely from the disease that I've had for 17 years. And I forgot what it's felt like to feel good. I'm not used to it. Yeah, the insane things like I'm starting to be able to, one of the experiences I had after my NDE was I could see through things. The walls would become white, and I'm starting to see that. I can actually see the matrix, like it looks like water, or it looks like rain, basically falling down, but essentially what it is energy. I was telling Anne this, that I can drive my car at 10 miles an hour without without my foot on the gas pedal. So it must be uh, some kind of energy thing. It's really bizarre. Um, so my hope is that through this book that I can bring healing to the races, because I didn't realize the conditioning that I had and how oppressive my thoughts were. And they weren't in alignment with who I was, who I really am.
Thank you. Linda is asking, by the way, about the healing techniques in your book, if it's okay to practice them while you're in soul convergence. And I would say that the I would wait until after soul convergence is over. It sounds like she has. So what are all of the techniques that are in the book? You have affirmations, and what other techniques are you sharing in the book?
So the techniques are everything from how to use mindfulness to a technique called mindful listening, which is it's a form of breath work that you do in a moment when something is making you triggered. And
Awesome.
the other thing is it includes like a set of, basically, step one, you're triggered, you accept your feelings. Step two, you analyze the situation. Step three, you shift your mindset. It's basically the techniques that the infinite creator has given me on how to change your mindset, how to neutralize the emotion, and how to replace it with a positive belief system.
I love it. And that would be totally, just so you're asking, Linda, that would be perfectly great to use while you're in soul convergence, because it's really helping you to be conscious as you're triggered, to look at, to be, it's giving you a thought process or system you can use to become self-aware, even more so. So I think that's a beautiful thing. And yeah, no issues with that at all. That's in terms of soul convergence. That's awesome. But yeah, I think that's fantastic, Amber. And the one affirmation you shared with us was beautiful. Do you mind reading that one again? The affirmation that you got from creator?
Which one did I say?
You you did one, gosh, I'd have to hear one of the words. I can't remember the exact specific, but as you read it, did anybody else hear it or make note of it as she said it? because it was beautiful. I can't remember the words of it right now, which is why I was asking. I'm like, oh, I just
Oh,
noticed
suffering.
yeah, suffering is grace. That's one. Thank you, Becky.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, so the way it goes is, it's called suffering.
Mhm.
So suffering is grace. Grace is suffering. Suffering is the rising of a teacher. Love all experiences. And so I didn't realize that, I mean, to this practice, I didn't realize that I was behaving badly because I was replaying. Essentially, what's happening is when you get triggered, I mean, and this, even this is like, I didn't realize this was happening. When you get triggered, what's really happening is there's something about the other person that you're experiencing some wounding. Some wounding is, which is an unconscious bias, is replaying in your mind that you're seeing in that situation. So for example, let's take an example of like you're threatened or someone feels threatened by you. So what's happening is they're seeing in you something that they don't see in themselves. And because of that, it's resulting in them feeling that they're not worthy, that they're not enough, that they don't have enough resources. And so, oh my gosh, I have to put you down to build myself up so that I can succeed, because we believe these resources issues are real and they're not. And so that's what's actually happening. And so then if I get mad at their behavior, I'm agreeing with their statement. So what this helps you do is it helps you sit in your awareness as someone is acting badly so that you can manage your own emotions and see their suffering. And through that, I teach in the book how to mirror back to them their own pain. Because what I didn't know was I was acting like a butthead because of my pain. It was replaying in my mind. And given the background I told you about, the reticular activation system holds you hostage unless you change those beliefs. I didn't know that. And so I've been running around feeling unhappy, loathing myself because of my past experience. And they just are replaying. Now, these are my past experiences. Everybody's experiences may be different, but they may result in the same beliefs. The same beliefs. We all think that we're not worthy, and it's not real.
You're so right. It's so interesting, Amber. It reminds me, this past week, my son and I went to help my daughter. She's getting settled in a new city for a new job. And we had some amazing conversation one night at the dinner table. We were out to a restaurant and we had this amazing conversation about sibling rivalry. And my kids get along great. Like they love each other. And like just the fact that my son flew out to help her get settled, like they have a beautiful relationship, but some of the tensions of sibling rivalry are still there. And it's like it creeps up and it shows its ugly head, and they're not always conscious of it when it happens. And I was trying to draw attention and say, look at the dynamic that's happening between you two, and that it's not a race anymore, and you guys are not in competition anymore. And we were having this conversation, and then my son, it somehow just popped out of him. He just said, yeah, I guess I can just take my trophy and go home. And it was like that last little, like there was from some wound inside of him. It was that to finally say, oh, you're right. I'll set the argument down after I get my last little dig and say, I won. Like I won, and now we can end the race because I won. And as soon as he said it, he almost startled himself. And he's like, I can't believe my daughter feels that and starts crying. And my son is like, I can't believe I just said that. And they had this incredibly healing moment together of like, where he saw himself and he said, that is not who I am. I don't want to be that person. And it was exactly what you're talking about. It came from the feeling of like scarcity and lack and all that. and it bubbled out, but it's that awareness, right? How to become aware of when we are being a jerk because of our fear and because of our pain. So I think it's just a beautiful way that you're showing how this applies to these larger societal issues that are so real for us. You're getting some beautiful comments here. We say, Diane says, what a beautiful message. Amber spoke directly to my very being. And Monica says, thanks for sharing your powerful transformational story. Can you please remind me what year you had your near-death experience? Oh, you're saying 2016. Okay. And Becky says, I spent my whole life sad because of separation from the light, unconditional love. So hard to get over that and be happy to be here. How did you get over that?
Well, honestly, Becky, so one of the things that the being of light shared with me in my near-death experience was something called awakening grace. And so I thought, I wasn't allowed to stay. So I thought when I came here, I was going to create awakening grace, and that was my mission, and blah, blah, blah. And then I was only allowed to remember up to a certain point. But it turns out that what the infinite creator was perfect. It's always perfect. We think it's not perfect because we think we have control, when in reality we actually don't have control over anything. And so awakening grace in the book, this is how it's defined: awakening to turn within, to witness bias, discord, and darkness. And grace means to extend loving kindness, light, and transformation. And awakening grace applies to you, and through you, it then can be applied to others. Because what the infinite creator helped me see was hurt people, and that you cannot give what you don't have. And through this transformation, I now feel almost as good as that near-death experience, because now I'm trying to bring heaven on earth in my daily experience. But it's not as you don't feel the blissful experience as I did when I was on the other side, but it's pretty awesome.
We have a question here from Linda. She says, I feel such, oh, sorry, I just lost it. I feel such deep grief over the issues that people of color have experienced. It makes me cry all the time. It is so deep within me. I have such a large amount of sadness and grief within me. Do you have a way to help me with this?
Yeah. I would say to work on yourself and to extend your hand of love to another, to a person of color, and work together on something. Liberate yourself through community.
That's a great idea. Yeah. Linda is commenting, just hurt people. Very profound. Yeah, I do. That's a lovely encapsulated way to express it. It really is. Becky says, thank you. Gives me hope. Yeah. Wonderful. Yeah.
Well, and my goal is, that's why I say this book is a comedy, because I'm a discrimination expert, and I found discrimination within me.
And what can you tell us in terms of that? Like, how did your realization around that, and how did it, because you're saying that your experience of your internal bias stemmed from other woundings that you had experienced. How do you think, like, we all attach our energy or project our energy into our world? How do you feel like yours landed there?
Because through the practice and through the techniques that I use in the book, the whole goal is to help you see yourself. And another another affirmation is thoughts and feelings are a choice. Is the thought and feeling that you're choosing helping or hurting you?
Mhm.
And so the thing that I realized was, okay, I am a policy advisor. My job is to find solutions to problems, and the problem was within me. Therefore, in order for me to be a leader in this work, I have to show how to solve it.
Mhm.
And and that's why I went into the various studies, into consciousness, into quantum mechanics, because this is really about consciousness, and to study the neuroscience of unconscious bias, because part of the problem is the brain, and the way to manage the brain, the thought forms that are coming up, you have to understand neuroplasticity, which is the way your brain works. The way that neuroscientists say to address unconscious bias is to slow down the mind. The only way you can slow down the mind is to put a gap between your thought and your thought. And the way that you do that is through mindful techniques. And then once you do that and you can see yourself, then you can transform yourself. And I don't want to be the oppressor. I want no oppression.
Yes. Yeah. And do you feel like, I mean, in our spiritual world, we're always told, and I believe strongly, that it is what we have on the inside we project into our experience. That if I'm experiencing something in my life that's triggering me that I don't like, I look inward and I say, what is it? How am I creating this? Is that, given a world where I think people would say that there are these biases, that there are these difficult things in the world, do you feel like the path is going inward, even for some of these really deeply felt issues? Like, how do people?
They all have to be, any problem has to be done within.
Mhm.
And and so I teach these techniques to my clients. And so I want to, in the book, I include an African tribal forgiveness ritual. And because again, remember what the RAS filter does. It holds you hostage. So in Africa, in Mumbai, there is a tribe that does the most beautiful thing. And I think this is the solution to how we end discord and discrimination. So what they do is, when someone acts in a way that's unbecoming to the tribe, they stop everything they're doing in the tribe, and they put the individual in the middle of the tribe, and they all form a circle around the individual. And the way they call it is, what they think, as I do, and I know you do, is they believe that wherever matter occurs, spirit is. And what they do is they recount every good deed, every thoughtful action, every loving kindness that that individual did. And the way they describe it is they remind the person back to their self. And think of it this way: if we made a mistake and we heard positive things when we did something wrong, that you are beautiful, that you are loving, that you are kind, that you are brilliant, can you imagine what this life would be like? Imagine that is what it would be like. And given that we only have 10 more minutes, Anne, I was hoping I might be able to read the channel that I did that was going to be the final chapter, but I made the final chapter a little bit more corporate. Would it be okay if I read the spiritual?
Please do.
Okay.
That sounds great. Yeah, love it.
So, the tribal forgiveness ritual. Imagine if that's how we first engaged with ourselves and with others. All right. We are all loved. The racist, the victim, the man, the woman, the child, the gay, the straight, the queer, the fat, the thin, the black, the white, the beautiful, the ugly, the rich, the poor, the judged, the judge, the merciful, the righteous. You, they, us are a part of me. I open my heart to you, the soul. Your essence is but a whisper of love upon my ear. The soft murmurings of your heart bring me joy. I touch you now with my divine grace. Forgive and remove the obstacles from your heart. Look inside and you will find me. Within the recesses of your mind, you may feel a tickling. Imagine the life that you want to have. Your soul is calling you, forgiving, loving, joyous, abundance, in service to others, growing into and evolving into better humans. Come with me on my golden chariot. Remove the bonds of slavery from your mind. Claim your place next to my heart for eternity. No longer wandering, lost, a seeking heart. You are a warrior of light to march upon the lands with joy, grace, and love within your heart. Purge the pain of suffering that lies within. Forgive, repeat, we are one.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Martha says, I love that loving kindness ritual you described. So beautifully said. Very powerful. Linda also says, what a beautiful ritual. Remind the person back to themselves. Thank you. Becky says, wow, very powerful. Yeah. And Martha adds, it sounds like your book is showing you how you can see yourself objectively. Would you say that's true?
Yeah.
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 And Linda saying, such a pity the book didn't end with that. Yeah. So hopefully you'll feel comfortable with your other interviews to be able to bring that last part out and share it more broadly,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe even add it back in at some point.
Yeah. Well, my goal is to both speak to spiritual audiences and also really to corporate ones.
Mhm.
The bulk of my clients are, corporations and engineering firms and in very conservative types of groups. Um, and I'm like you, I'm here to support in the harvest, in which case I'm trying to help the infinite creator with another group as well. So,
Mhm. Wonderful. Wonderful. Fantastic.
questions.
Yeah, if anybody else has anything you'd like to share with Amber, please feel free to go ahead. We have a few minutes left. Feel free to go ahead and unmute if there's anything that you want to add into the conversation. I'm sure we would love to hear your voice.
Amber, I love that last piece. Somehow you've got to put an addendum in or something. That is amazing. Just beautiful.
Yeah, isn't it
Thank you.
beautiful?
Yeah, and your book just sounds beautiful. So thank you.
Linda is asking, what is the name of your book?
It's called Heal the Four Woundings. Let's see. Heal the Four Woundings.
Awesome.
A guide to end discord and discrimination. Because the other thing is, when I say I'm vulnerable in the book, I'm really vulnerable. Like I talk about how how these four woundings showed up with my partner. My partner and I had been together, and then we ended up breaking up, and he proceeded to tell me that he'd met someone and blah blah. And so anyways, I shared in the book how the four woundings showed up with me, and I acted pissy. And I mean, all of this is about how do we end discord and discrimination? Well, the way that we do it is we have to learn and see how these techniques apply to ourselves. And so I used myself because I was seeing it everywhere. Now I see it everywhere. I see it with myself. My staff uses it with me. So one of the things we say is that's not real. So when we're essentially exhibiting a bias, which is believing that we're not worthy, we remind each other that's not real. It's not real. And because we're women, we are going to have those first two woundings a lot because of marketing. I mean,
Can you repeat the first two woundings?
What'd you say?
Can you repeat the first two woundings? You said that we're going to have the first two woundings. Can you repeat what they are?
Yeah. The first two woundings are I am not enough and I am not worthy. And as women, and so I talk about like, I mean, one of the reasons why I felt the way that I did around white women is because the aesthetic of beauty in the United States is a white aesthetic, and I felt that I was ugly. And so therefore I compared myself to white women. And so it ties to the wounding because I think that I'm not enough compared to what? Compared to white women. And so it's a wounding. It's conditioned in our mind, and women believe that we have to compare ourselves to other women, and we believe we have to be a certain way. And one of the things I talk about is no, the infinite creator helped me realize you have to be your authentic puzzle piece, whatever the heck that is. You have to be that in order for the divine plan to work out. Whatever it is, however you look, whether you're thin, thick, whatever, it doesn't matter. You're perfect exactly the way you are.
Yeah, so true. So true. And sometimes those people that you might look at and think, oh, they have it all together, they are the most insecure of them all. So it's never, everybody has their own equal share of baggage. So Becky adds, Liberty Mutual did a ton of work with unconscious bias, and it was so eye-opening. So yes, corporate has a huge place in the work you're doing. Awesome. Yes. And she said, Linda suggests you could have the reader choose which ending they wanted to end on, like kids' books. That is awesome. She says, gosh, I sometimes think I'm not enough when I compare myself to women of color. Yeah. So interesting. And I think it's wonderful that you do see the standard of beauty changing, that it's so much more now, it's much more common to see all different shapes and sizes. Like I'm amazed now, you will see mannequins in stores are all different shapes, which I think is awesome. It's phenomenal. It's almost like and it really is something about what are we exposed to? What are we conditioned to believe is normal? And I think of it as like if you've ever been into home decor, and you'll notice there will be a new trend that comes out, and in the beginning people are resistant to it or they might not like it, and then you'll just start to see it everywhere, and pretty soon it becomes a thing that everybody thinks is normal, and it becomes a thing that everyone accepts and likes. And then eventually we move on to the next thing. But it's like perception, or it's like the collective perception of what is good. Right. It takes a while. It's almost like we have to see it a bunch of times. And so I think the fact that they're changing what we're seeing in advertising matters. It really matters. Yeah. Yeah. What are the last two woundings, please? They're asking if you don't mind sharing the last two woundings.
Yep. I'm putting them in.
And if you're willing to read them out loud for us for the recording, because the recording won't have the chat.
So the four woundings are, I am not worthy, I am not enough, I have to win, and I don't have enough. So so let me give you an example of a woman discriminating or oppressing another woman. So here's what's happening in her mind. So the woman is believing that there's only room for one at the top. And so when she sees another woman that's like got really great skills in some area, and she thinks that she doesn't have those strengths, she's thinking, "Oh, I'm not enough." And when she's thinking that, she's comparing herself to that other person, because the enough compared to what? And so then she's thinking, oh, I'm not worthy, and compared to this other person that has this great blah, 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 because there's only one room at the top. And then she's thinking, oh man, well, in order to succeed, because we believe we have to compete, she believes I have to win. In order to win, I have to not let this person have access to resources. I have to do something to this other person so that I can win, so that I have enough. That's the way it's playing out. And so these 4 woundings are essentially like, it's a perfect triad that unless you catch yourself, you could act in a way, at the very least, that could be controlling. And or at the minimum, you could be emotional, you could be triggered. I mean, there's all sorts of things, but at the far end of the scale, it could result in oppression. And we don't, because we believe these are real, and marketing is telling us that these are real in a number of different ways, right? They're telling you, wear this lip gloss, you'll be beautiful. That's, I am not worthy. You need to look this certain way. That's, I am not enough. I have to win is you have to do these other things in order to be a winner. And I don't have enough. We're all getting pummeled right now for Christmas on that very thing. So these are endemic. We have to slow ourselves down and catch our mind, or else it'll take control.
Yeah. Love it. Well, Amber, I think everybody has been I think your message definitely resonated with our community, and I'm so grateful that you shared it. And I'm so excited for you to be going out and sharing this more broadly, because I think it takes what is at its heart of, a message, straight from source, that is healing. One of the biggest things, really, we're meant to be coming towards unity. We're meant to be coming together. And the only way to do that is to heal ourselves. And you're saying it in a way that I think will show people how to do that, which is just so cool. Yeah, Martha says, incredible message. Amber, thank you so much for sharing your book. And Diane would love to speak, but she's crying. She says she's happy to hear the message. Thank you today. It is so awesome. Thank you so much. All right, you guys. So where can they find your book, Amber?
You can go to healthe4woundings.com.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Fantastic. Thank you guys so much for joining us. What a fabulous message today. I loved it. I will have the recording up on the Wisdom Soup YouTube channel shortly. So in case anybody missed it, or if you want to share it with someone, it's available for you. Thank you.
Hold on. Can I just mention that her book is, you can get it at Amazon too.
Fantastic.
Yeah, she sent an email out with the link to go right to Amazon.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Martha already ordered it. All right. Great to hear.
All right.
Okay, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. You guys next. It's always the second Thursday of the month. So we'll see you January 2nd Thursday of the month for Wisdom Soup. Bye, you guys. Have a great day. Thank you so much, Amber. Bye-bye.